Eternal Darkness is the definition of a cult classic. I picked it up from Blockbuster with a friend, per chance, and let me tell you, to this day, it's still one of the greatest horror games, and I'll explain it to you in 20 minutes, or less. Meet Alexandra Roivas. We'll call her Alex for short. Alex doesn't have a lot of family, just one grandfather. Make that no grandfather. Yes, her grandfather Edward was brutally murdered in his mansion precisely at 3:33 a.m. in Rhode Island. Alex goes over to identify the body, but there's no head. She knows it's him based on the family ring he's wearing. The cops have a whodunit and essentially give up, but Alex won't settle for that. She believes the circumstances of her grandfather's death to be too strange and decides to stay in the mansion until she can solve it. Upon setting the clock to 3:33, Alex finds a hidden passage, a secret study of Edward Roivas. Deep within, she discovers the Tome of Eternal Darkness, a strange book bound together by what appears to be flesh. The tome is magically written, and defines the paths of a chosen few, and I should note here that it's magic with a K, not just regular magic. As Alex begins reading, she learns of Pius Augustus, a Roman who seeks treasure within an ancient ruin in Persia, 26 BC. The ancients, powerful entities within this universe, call out to him, and eventually lead him to a treasure room with 3 odd icons. In terms of storytelling, the 3 represent the gods Zelatoth, Chechurga, and Ulyaoth. These gods are all in a power struggle. Zelatoth's realm deals in psychosis, Chechurga in physical, and Ulyaoth in magical. Now the gamer within you can easily spot the representation here. Zelatoth is your sanity meter, Chechurga is your health, and Ulyaoth is your magic. Anyway, these 3 gods are bound and imprisoned by another ancient god known as Mantarok. Mantarok actually grows in power when the other 3 gods aren't in balance, and as long as Mantarok exists, the 3 other gods cannot reap destruction on the universe. So in a nutshell, Mantarok seems like he's a solid dude. Once Pius claims one of the 3 artifacts, he's corrupted and becomes a servant to the respective god. If he chooses the green one, he serves Zelatoth. The red one, he serves Chechurga, and finally the blue one, he serves Ulyaoth. It's at this point the game splits into 3 parallel stories. This video will cover all 3 simultaneously. The next chapter within the Tome of Eternal Darkness tells the story of Elia from Cambodia, 1150 AD. Elia is a dancer and loves to read. Good thing she finds the Tome of Eternal Darkness and finds herself tangled in our web here. Long story short, Elia gets lost in a temple and finds Mantarok, who's been bound by Pius, his power continuously waning. She's entrusted with Mantarok's essence, as Pius is searching for it. If the essence is destroyed, the planet will suffer dire consequences, as the gods will be freed. The essence fuses with Elia's body, for safekeeping, you know? Like I don't like to lose my cell phone, so I typically swallow it before I leave the house. Pius stumbles upon Elia and kills her for not helping him find the essence. As she rots, she continues to protect the essence. Since Alex is an avid reader, she finds another chapter, with Anthony in France 814 AD. We're in the time of the Holy Roman Empire with Charlemagne.
Charlemagne the Frank.
Charlemagne.
Alright dude, you get it. Anyway, the Roman Empire was exterminating pagan religions, and the ancients realized they would be wiped out, so they planned to assassinate Charlemagne. Anthony, one of Charlemagne's servants, intercepts a letter destined for Charlemagne, and finds that it's cursed. He plans on warning Charlemagne of this horror, but he is met with much adversity. The church is filled with creatures. When he finally finds Charlemagne, he's too late. Charlemagne is already dead, and Anthony is cursed to slowly decompose. Next we meet Karim, another Persian dude from 565 AD. All Karim wants is to Seriously, he's trying to win over the heart of the beautiful Chandra. Spoiler alert, she's a Chandra sends Karim out to find a lost relic, and instead, Karim finds the Tome of Eternal Darkness. When Karim finally makes it to the artifact, he is interrupted by the ghost of Chandra. While he was away, she had an affair with another man who was married. His mistress killed Chandra. But in death, Chandra learned that the artifact is actually an essence of an ancient. Karim agrees to guard it and prevent the world from falling into darkness. The next chapter hits closer to home. Maximilian Roivas, from the American colonies in 1760 AD, came upon the family matter in a similar way Alex did, through a mysterious death in the family. During his exploration, Maximilian discovers the burden placed on his family line. The Reuvis family has a duty to guard the only means of summoning the ancient armies, a place called Enga. Enga rests beneath America now, and if the ancients manage to take control of it, they will be able to raise armies and destroy the planet. One day, Max comes under attack by one of the servants. Upon death, a demon bursts out of the servant's corpse. Max decides to explore the mansion and try and figure out why the family has been under attack. He, of course, finds the tome. During his search, Max discovers Enga and learns that the mansion's servants are actually agents for the ancients. He murders his staff, thinking them as casualties of war. Max's colleagues learn of his ravings and discover the bodies of the servants. Max is locked away in an asylum for the rest of his days. The story starts to become clear to Alex. As she continues reading, she learns of Edwin Lindsay, an archaeologist in Cambodia, 1983. With a man named Augustine, real subtle, Edwin uses satellite technology to find a lost temple. Once inside, Augustine reveals himself to be Pius, hunting for Mantarok's essence. He leaves Edwin to die, but he doesn't. Edwin and Pius both find Mantarok at the same time. Mantarok gives Pius a thrashing, and Pius retreats. Edwin meets the spirit of Elia, who tells him of the importance of guarding the essence of Mantarok. Edwin, realizing the gravity of this, returns to America and hands off the essence to none other than Edward Reuvis. So next, we meet Paul Luther, a dude from the Inquisition in France. This time we learn of heresy! After seeking protection in a cathedral, Paul gets blamed for the murder of a brother. A fellow monk helps Paul escape. Upon exploring the cathedral further, Paul ends up finding Anthony, who's still raving about his failure to Charlemagne. After putting Anthony to rest, Paul finds the Guardian of the Ancients, a massive beast that varies based on the game's path. Each alignment will have a different incarnation. In the end, Pius instructs the Guardian to smite Paul. We next meet Roberto in Persia, 1460 AD, another architect. Roberto is held captive by a warlord who turns out to be Pius in disguise. Roberto is tasked with building a temple for Pius, a pillar of flesh and bone, to honor the return of the ancient. After entering the temple to check its structural integrity, Roberto encounters the spirit of Karim, who attempts to strike Roberto down. It's only when Roberto is unfazed by the assault that Karim realizes Roberto is the next chosen one to carry on the essence he had been defending for so long. In the end, Pius decides to make Roberto a part of the pillar. Roberto becomes part of the monument, and the essence safely remains within him. Alex's next chapter in the tome tells the tale of Peter Jacob, a World War I reporter stationed in an old cathedral in France in 1916 AD. Peter reports on the hospice from which many soldiers are dying. He finds some journals reporting that the soldiers are being sacrificed. Peter initially thinks that it's from shell shock, but he decides to pursue the nurses. Indeed, the nurses are taking healthy soldiers away to their deaths. Peter encounters a giant beast and emerges victorious. Now, with another essence in tow, he heads home. He learns of Edward Reuvis. He hands off the essence and dies peacefully in his sleep, now that his task is complete. At last, Alex finds the chapter about her grandfather. We follow a younger Edward Reuvis, 1952 AD, in the mansion in Rhode Island. He begins investigating the suicides and dementia that his family has been plagued with. Edward has a vision of his ancestor, Maximilian. Max shows Edward the Tome of Eternal Darkness and instructs him to destroy Enga. After one of Edward's servants comes under attack, Edward discovers the hidden city beneath the mansion. Equipped with the magic from the tome, Edward destroys Enga's power source. It feels like there's still some holes missing in Edward's story. Well, there are, but first, Michael Edwards. 1991 AD, Middle Eastern Persia, the UN sent armies to attempt to put out fires on an American oil reserve. Michael Edwards was sent in but got tangled up in some horror. His entire team was killed and Michael became trapped underground. There, Michael meets Roberto, who hands off the essence. Michael destroys another Guardian city and hands off the essence, Pius' sword, as well as the tome, to Edward Reuvis. We flash forward to modern times. Edward Reuvis has developed a device to prevent the city of Enga from opening up until the dawn of the new millennium. Edward believes that Pius is mustering an army and preparing for one final showdown. Unfortunately, Edward is killed before he can finish the fight. And this is exactly where Alex Reuvis enters the picture. Now all caught up with the history of the tome, she understands her place in the story. She must kill Pius. Armed with Pius's weapon, Mantarok's essence, as well as the essence of 2 other ancients, Alex heads into Enga. With the knowledge from the chosen ones before her, Alex finds that Pius has already begun summoning the ancient. To counteract it, Alex summons the opposite god. The ancients duke it out, while Pius turns his attention to Alex. With the power of the chosen few, Alex overcomes Pius, and her ancient defeats the one Pius summoned. Edward's ghost enters the picture and binds the god Alex summoned to stall the coming of the eternal darkness for another day. Edward leaves Alex's side as Alex realizes her god could have just as easily destroyed the world, just as Pius's would have. She has her inheritance now, battling the eternal darkness. Now, if you really liked Eternal Darkness, you probably played it through choosing all 3 different paths, and if you did, you got to see the true ending of the game. Or you can just watch Games Under 20. We see a flash of Mantarok now, still bound by Pius. His plan to destroy the Ancients was a success, largely due to the Roivas family. See, Mantarok had been resetting time again and again, beckoning Pius to the ruins to claim an artifact and serve a different god, and each time the Roivas family would step in and help destroy that god. The Roivas family believed they stopped, or at least delayed the eternal darkness, when in fact they empowered it. Mantarok merely had been waiting, growing in power, and is now ready to reveal itself as the true form of the eternal darkness.